Welcome to the Chasing Rescue podcast. I'm Tanya McBain.
And I'm Dr. Michelle Rich, and this is where you're going to remember your voice, reclaim your life, and find your purpose.
Let's get into it.
Hey, welcome back to the Chasing Rescue podcast. We are talking today about the strategies for how to stay safe, and we're going to talk about a safety plan. So if you've ever considered trying to go no contact or get away from a narcissist, this episode is for you, because the one thing that we always say is never underestimate the narcissist. They will go as deep and as awful as they need to go to get what they want. So safety plan is so important. So a lot of people might not know really what a safety plan even means. How would you describe it?
Well, when I was trying to get away from the narcissist in my life, I wish someone had told me, okay, get all your ducks in a row before you just go and confront the narcissist and say, I want a divorce. That's probably not a safety plan. That's not the best thing. So it would have been great for me to have laid out a plan and taken a little bit longer. I wanted out so bad. I think I just knee-jerk reaction to get out instead of made a plan. Even to the smallest, what would seem like silly details of even taking your favorite photographs and putting them away so they didn't get destroyed, or precious items that you might not get to take out of the house that the narcissist doesn't actually want, but they're precious to you. So those kind of things. But as far as staying safe, just when you think the narcissist has gone as low as they can go, they go lower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they seem to somehow change physics and find an even lower depth than they've found before. And I am always number one focused on safety. So if, please take this with the consideration that in a perfect world, you have time to make this safety plan, right? But if there is a time where you're in danger, get out. Call the police, right? Don't say, well, my timeline, I'm not there yet.
Go to a neighbor, to a family.
So with just have that to be clear that if you're in danger, don't delay because it's not part of your safety plan timeline yet. But if you do have time to make a safety plan, it's so important, and it will make the transition into going no contact with the narcissist so much easier. And a lot of times we think of safety plans as far as being in a marital or, like dating type relationship, living with someone type relationship. But it can be used regardless of what the relationship is, right? If you need to leave a boss, if you need to leave a job, if you need to leave, get a friend away from your roommate, whatever. But most of the time it is when it's, most people consider a safety plan when they're leaving like a marital type situation. But again, safety first. If you feel in danger, don't wait for your timeline to happen. But if you do have time to make a timeline, it is really important because it will make, the post-separation a little bit less chaotic.
Let me ask you, so what does the safety plan look like when you are trying to explain that to a client or trying to lay that out without scaring somebody to death? That's not the plan. Because you don't want to scare them into staying. You want to give them a tool of, how do you make a plan?
Right. And a lot of people actually like making the safety plan because it gives them something specific to do that makes them feel like they're making progress.
Or in control.
It makes them feel in control. It makes them feel like they're actually having the power to make decisions for themselves. So a safety plan is you want to know kind of what your options are and get all of your things together in advance of saying to the narcissist, like, we're done, whoever that narcissist happens to be, whatever role that is in your life. And so it can include, like you mentioned, getting the things that are valuable to you, right? Is it photos? Is it, mementos, heirlooms, whatever.
Family puzzle, whatever.
Family, right? Whatever those things are. I also recommend finding, and again, this goes to my focus on safety, have a place that you can go to. If you know that if it's a dangerous, like physically dangerous situation, have a place pre-established that you can go to, whether it's a shelter, whether it's a friend, whether it's a hotel, have a place in mind to where you don't have to problem solve in the middle of an emergency. You know, oh my gosh, if A happens, I go to B. It's not where, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You want to plan ahead to have a place to go that you know is safe. And if it involves someone else, not like if it's a hotel, it's fine. But if it involves a friend or a family member or something, have them in on your plan.
Yes, because one thing you can count on is the narcissist is not going to be fair. Because even when I was leaving my narcissistic relationship, I actually expected him to be fair. And I'll give you an example. We had a joint checking account where we put our money, my paycheck, his paycheck, paid the bills from. This second I told him I wanted out, he drained that account, went to another bank, and opened up an account only in his name. I had no access to those funds. I didn't expect that. I actually expected him to act like a human being. But when you think they're here, they will find a way to go lower.
Correct. Yeah, because you're not dealing with a human being. You're dealing with the devil, basically, when you're trying to, And I had a similar experience where I changed my my mailing address to where I was living, and he went back to the post office and changed it back. And so I wasn't getting mail, I wasn't getting bills, those kinds of things. And you're in the midst of all of this chaos to where you don't necessarily miss the things that you normally pay attention to. So, but you definitely want to have a safe place to go. I also recommend having a support person, a friend, family member, whoever that knows what you're going through, that knows kind of your timeline, that knows that this is what you're planning to do, so that you can have someone who knows your plan in case you're not able to share it, during the midst of things. They already know that if you call, you don't need to explain things. They know what's going on. I also recommend a safe word or a code word that if you text it to a friend, family member, whoever, they know what it means. They know it means call 911. They know it means, I've left. You can find me at the hotel we talked about where I'm going to, be staying to stay safe. Another thing, and I think what you mentioned is really important that a lot of people don't think of, is the financial aspect of it, right? Most people stay in a narcissistic relationship largely due to the financial aspect of it. And narcissists know this. And because they're not unaware, they know what their behavior is. They know that they're not treating you right. And that's why they do it behind closed doors, right? If they couldn't control themselves, they would be acting a fool everywhere. But they only act a fool behind closed doors when they think nobody else is watching them, right? So they know, and they know how to manipulate and abuse financially. And so they will go, and they'll go and close bank accounts. They'll go and freeze things. They'll go and spend every penny so that there's nothing left. So if you can have time to where you can stash away some money on your own, and I even recommend you going in advance of saying that you're going to cut ties with the narcissist and setting up your own account
Absolutely.
with only your name on it that they don't know about at a bank you've never used with them, and set it up under only your name, and then start to stash some things away.
And there's always unexpected things that come up. For example, when I was trying to get a divorce, I went to a lawyer and I gave a deposit so that I could begin the process. And the law firm mailed my receipt to the house where I lived with the narcissist. And that's how he found out I went to a lawyer. Well, you think that was a fun fight? I mean, that's how he found out. So even the best laid plans could get off track. So just be aware and make the plan, and it has to be a little flexible.
Yes, exactly. It has to be a little flexible. And doing your homework too, finding an attorney who understands the aspect of narcissism. I don't know if there's, I know like for therapy, and there's psychologytoday.com where you can go and see all kinds of bios of people. And in mine specifically, I have that I deal with narcissistic abuse. I don't know if that's the case, if there's anything for lawyers like that. But
you can interview the lawyer and can just see if they're open to it. Or, I mean, there's good, bad, and ugly in every kind of situation. So you just have to find a lawyer that works for you.
And especially if you're involved in any kind of like support group for narcissistic survivors, there could be people who would give you a recommendation for, an attorney. But another thing to consider too is that that narcissists will do whatever they can to make it impossible for you to get what you need, even with an attorney. And I don't know if it's like this anywhere else, but I want to say it's Hong Kong, where if somebody goes to retain an attorney and just interviews them, just has an appointment, doesn't even put any money down, the other spouse cannot use that attorney.
I think that, that's kind of basic.
So
Or if there's any kind of relationship or conflict, I mean, there's a lot.
right.
Yeah.
So if you know that there is like the best divorce attorney or the best family law attorney or the best contract attorney, if it's like a parent who's trying to keep you out of the will or the trust or whatever, if you know that that's who you want to go to, I would say go and meet that person first, because once the narcissist finds out that you're looking at attorneys, and if they know that they can get this attorney to not be able to defend you or to, support you just by making an appointment and having a conversation, they'll do that because they don't want you to have access to the best or finances or anything. And they will, like you said, they'll go as low as they need to. I always say with a narcissist, A plus B equals C. If the narcissist wants C, it does not matter what A and B have to be. They will break the law. They will lie. They will throw family members under the bus. They will cheat the system. They'll do whatever it takes to get what they want.
That's very true. And we're both survivors of narcissistic abuse. We were raised by narcissists. So, it is a generational thing, and it stopped with us. And so I do want to offer some hope. There is hope past a narcissistic relationship. You can get the help you need. And we have both moved on to very healthy marriages, have wonderful relationships, and we are able to live our best lives because we chose to get healing. And now that, we are in that healing place, we're able to help other people get through this.
Yeah.
So it's not all dark. There is hope at the end.
There is hope. And that's kind of why people get excited when they get to have a safety plan, because it's that for those first few steps on that road of hope and on that road of healing. And you can check off a box of, did I open a bank account in my own name at a different bank that we've never used before? Yes, right? It's that momentum that makes you stronger, right? Because the narcissist wants you to stay stuck. But when you can start to look inward and take the power and the steps that you can take, that's so empowering. And that's why we're here. That's why we wrote Chasing Rescue, because we want you to know that it's not all dark. It's not all just about, how to constantly walk on eggshells and avoid the landmines and the grenades with the narcissist. It's about taking your power back. And here's the steps that you can do that. And so the safety plan, again, super important. Make sure you have a place, open a bank account, make sure you know where all of the finances are hidden. So a lot of narcissists will hide finances from people, from the spouse or the kids or whoever.
Absolutely.
So sometimes people get a private eye involved, right? An investigator, a financial account, or a forensic accountant involved to kind of go over things ahead of time, just so you kind of know where everything is so that you can be supported.
I'm excited to let you know Chasing Rescue is now an Amazon bestseller. If you've not gotten your copy, you can get it at Amazon, Kindle, or Barnes & Noble.
And you want to, when you can make a timeline, right, that makes you feel like better every day, because you're getting, if it's 30 days from now or 6 months from now, every day you're checking off a box, getting closer to that bigger, that bigger step, that next chapter, the goal. And so what was helpful for you, like if you can look back and see, okay, what would I have wanted to have in place before he found out that, that you got the receipt from the lawyer in the mail? What would you have liked to have had? What do you think would have been more helpful for you to have had already planned in place?
Well, he became very angry because I wasn't keeping the secret life he had secret, because I found out that he was having multiple affairs with men. And that was the final straw. I lived under abuse. It would have been very nice if I knew that the post-abuse separation was going to be worse than living in the marriage. But I did want to get out. But he was so angry that I didn't keep the secret. I didn't want to stay married and hide this awful secret that he was, a narcissist, abusive, ugly, hateful. And he didn't want any of that to come out because, Everybody loved him. He was charming. How dare me crack open the door of what was going on?
Yeah.
So it would have been nice if I had a better plan with when I went off the rails, the plan was in place. And it would have been nice if I did the bank account and I had put my money aside, and put some aside and got prepared for that. And it would have been nice if I had a therapist on my side, or I had a friend that could walk through this, or someone to walk through and say, okay, I got you. I've done this before. Or even had been in a group where they said, I've been where you have been. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. Just like we are now saying what's going to happen. Just some more support. I think sometimes survivors of narcissistic abuse are strong women or strong men because that's why they're chosen. Because it's somebody that they are going to enjoy tearing down. They are going to enjoy seeing you crumble under their control. So I was headstrong and just was like, I've got a reason to get out. I was just done.
Yes. Yes. And I'm a firm believer in when you're ready. When you know. But the one thing that is always hard to do is if you don't know that you want to make a plan, it's hard to not maybe come out and be like, all right, we're done. And then just leave, on a dime. Like, in your head, you've been thinking about it. But if you can think about, okay, I always ask clients like, okay, what's your goal? Like your goal is to, get out of this and, have this and this in place or whatever. Having that delayed gratification and knowing, okay, I'm going to put in my time for another 2 months because I want to get these in place. Because long term, 2 months sounds like a really long time, but like long term for the next, 10 years, my life will be better if I just plan a little bit, ahead of time for the first 2 months or 6 months or whatever. Again, if it's dangerous, get out, right?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Gotta cut bait and leave.
Yes. Yes. But if you can, right, knowing that your life will be easier for years and years to come if you put these things in place ahead of time, that's really, but again, it's called a safety plan for a reason because it's all about safety.
Sure.
But it's also a plan to be able to have your tools, have your documents. This is something a lot of people miss, is have your documents, have copies of your documents, your birth certificate, kids' birth certificates, your will, your trust, your mortgage, all of your, credit card numbers. Have copies of those. Get a safety deposit box. Have them somewhere where, your passport, those kinds of things, where you want to have copies of them. Because again, what you referenced before, family mementos, the narcissist might not care about them, but they know if you care about them, then they care about them because they just don't want you to have it because it's all about power and control. So make sure that you get these things. There's more steps in the book for a safety plan,
Right.
because it is about safety, but it's also about logistics, and it's also about having what you need when you're going through one of the hardest times in your life.
And you asked me a question about what would have been helpful. Well, I didn't realize that narcissists do not follow court orders.
Correct.
They don't listen to anyone. Why would they listen to a judge? And that actually shocked me because when we were trying to get divorced, the judge decided he would stay in our home for 5 days. I would go to a friend's house, and then I would come back in the house, and he would go to his parents' house. And, we had to find other places to go so the kids were in place. Well, the first week he was supposed to be gone, I come in with the kids, and he's sitting on the couch watching TV. And I'm like, you can't be here. I mean, it was just one thing after another. Those are little tiny things, but, then the judge says at the end of the month, if there's any money left over, you have to split it with your spouse. Every time at the end of the month, no matter what we had, if it was big or small, he donated it to the church. So there would be $0 to give me. I mean, there's a whole new level of evil when you financially abuse your spouse and you end up actually sacrificing your child because that money is to be used for your child. And you don't care if it hurts your child because you want to hurt the spouse that bad. So, these are just things that you need to expect them. Now, if they don't happen and you're ready, that's great.
Right.
Then you're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So, that's why I think having some type of plan, having expectations of they're going to go lower than you think is always best. And then you're ready,
Yeah.
And you're not just blindsided.
Correct. Because again, you made a great point. They will sacrifice their children because A plus B equals C. If they want to hurt you, it doesn't matter if A and B are the kids. Because like we talked about in the last episode, they don't approach relationships, the law, court orders, whatever, children, parenting, they don't approach that like a healthy, normal person does. They approach it like kids are just an extension of them. Kids are to be used as a tool. The courts are to be used as a tool. I'm the greatest thing ever. So of course the judge is going to side with me. I don't have to listen to that. Like those are laws are for other people. They don't apply to me. I was working with a client who he was it was the wife who was a narcissist, and they were going through a divorce and had to split up the business and everything. And she just blatantly ignored all of the deadlines for having to, do the financial disclosures, all of the deadlines for, anything, and just didn't show up at court, didn't anything.
Yeah.
And it was just like ultimately she did. By the time it was kind of like when parents say, I'm going to count to 3, 1, 2, she waited until the judge was like, no, this really is the deadline. And but she delayed it like another 6 months, and so they will sacrifice even their children, even the law.
Yes.
Right.
And another thing I would have liked to have been prepared for was the smear campaign.
Oh, goodness.
And it was something out of a nightmare. I had no idea his ability to smear my name. I didn't take drugs. I actually didn't drink, and I didn't take sleeping pills. I didn't have an addiction. He made it seem like I was a druggie and that I needed to lose my children because of my habits, and threatened to take my children. And, I actually lost one of my best friends because of this smear campaign. I mean, the damage is there. The truth always comes out. But, I was spending time denying, defending, and trying to stop what he was doing. There is just no time for that because they're masters at it. They're really good at it.
Yeah. And that's where radical acceptance comes in, where you just have to realize that some people are just going to believe the fairy tale, right? But the people that are meant to stay in your life will hear your side. And I grew up in a very, my biological father was out of my life by the time I was 8. And my mom got remarried and my dad adopted my brother and I. And I grew up in a very Christian family. And so no drinking, no smoke, like that kind of thing. And so when I was going through a divorce, the narcissist came to my mom and said, well, Michelle's hanging out at the bar. And so my mom was like, what? And I had 2 little kids, right? And my mom asked me about it. She said, well, he came and told me that you were hanging out at the bar. I said, I was at Chili's. Yeah, like with my best friend.
Yeah, Chili's,
I wasn't even sitting at the bar. I was sitting at a booth.
Right.
But they don't care how they will twist the narrative.
It's all
because it's all about perspective and image. And he just wanted to cause chaos, and he wanted to try to, make others doubt me. And of course, who's, my mom. Right. So he's thinking, oh, that's going to be the most powerful person to get to doubt her. And then she'll, certainly try to convince her to stay with me because now she's turned into, this bar hopper. Like, no, I had chips and salsa, And so, but yeah, it's the smear campaign where they will go even to your mom and try to make you look like a horrible person.
I didn't realize that was happening to other people. But after we were divorced, I mean, we're done. Everything is settled and I'm living my life. And I, get a call from my cousin who said, your ex-husband called me and, did a smear campaign on this and this, and it was on your parenting and how you're awful at it. And then I get a call from my father. He called him. He called many people in my family. We were done, but he just wasn't done with me. He wasn't done with the abuse. He just wanted to keep that connection somehow because he had no access to me except email. And that wasn't enough for him. He just wasn't done.
Yeah. Well, and they need that supply, right? So if I always say like the best thing for a victim of a narcissist is for the narcissist, sounds terrible, to find another supply, right? Because then if they're getting a supply somewhere else, they will leave you alone. And that's where gray rocking comes in, right?
So important.
Where if you can be as boring as possible to them,
do not engage.
Do not engage. And it's so hard because we, healthy, normal people, empathetic people that are good at communication that want to make things better, they want to engage and try to smooth things over and make things right. And the narcissist just takes that as an open door. And so, like I always say, don't pick up the other end of the rope because they're going to toss you that rope.
Yes.
Whether it's an email, a text, a smear campaign, somebody else reaching out to you. I had, where because I had found personal ads. That was when I knew that I was done, when I found the personal ad saying that he was divorced. And I was like, I can make that happen. And
Exactly.
he had friends call me and say, oh, he was just kidding. Like, you're just taking it too seriously. And I'm like, I don't really know how I can mistake that, but
Right. Oh, I think that was something I really had to learn is I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to tell my side of the story because you're either with me or you're not.
yes,
And it's okay if you've decided to go your own way. I want the people in my life who want to be there. I'm not going to chase people down.
yes,
And I don't have the energy and the time to defend myself against a narcissist who is so much better at it me with their smear campaign and this and their, it's just, it's not worth the energy.
it's not, right? Because you can't even guess sometimes what these people come up with for the smear campaigns and the lies that they're going to say, right? I would never have gone to Chili's and been like, oh, I'm going to be accused of bar hopping. I mean, like they can just find things and twist the narrative, and they make up things that
Well, I'll give you a great example of making something up. I volunteered once her attorney and I talked about it. I got a lie detector test because the narcissist said that I had an affair with our nanny, who is a woman, and that I had an affair with my boss, who was married, and that I'd had multiple affairs along in the marriage, and I had not. And I was like, give me the lie detector test. And of course, I passed with flying colors that I had not had an affair with anyone and I had not been with anyone but him during this time period. And so, um, and then, we had to present that in court. They didn't go over the details, but, you know, it was kind of humiliating to go have to do something like that to prove that I'm a good person or that I didn't violate my marriage vows. But I mean, that's just the kind of stuff they sling at you. And so that's why it's so important to have some kind of plan and some kind of expectations because you said it before. If you're going to get sucker punched, you need to brace yourself.
yes, yes. And I think that it's so empowering to know that you have a say in how things go. You can't you can't predict them necessarily. You can predict that they're going to be terrible. You can't control them, but you have say of how you hold yourself, right? What you do, what you say, what you don't say, when you pick up the other end of the rope, when you don't. You get to decide your actions, right? And they don't get to determine those anymore. And taking that power back, and I think this will be a good thing, a good segue into our next episode where we talk about hope and what it is like on the other side, because it's so worth it, right? And I refer you, it's so freeing and it is worth everything that you're going through to get to where you can wake up and we talked about this last night, have a cup of coffee. And it's the best, most peaceful cup of coffee that you've ever had.
You get your life back.
You get your life back. Yes. And you remember your voice and you reclaim your life and you get to be who you want to be, not shrinking yourself to be who they want you to be. Right. And so we'll talk about that hope and how to get there more in the next episode. Thanks for joining us.